Hi, this is Ken Parker welcoming you to another episode of Common Ground, the policy roundtable where we discuss issues of concern to Newton residents and try to hammer out some of our differences. For those of you who are new to the show, let's review the rules. First, I introduce a topic. Then we go around the table once, with each panelist expressing a viewpoint. I then select the two panelists who disagree the most strongly and ask them to speak directly to one another in hopes of finding some area of agreement. I then bring in the remaining panelists to the conversation and at the end of the segment give an assessment of how we did at finding common ground and possibly put in my 2 cents on the topic. We have an absolutely fabulous panel tonight to celebrate our return to live in-studio shows. And I'm so excited about this panel. And I'm also really excited about the topic tonight because I expect tonight to learn some things about what's going on in Newton and Newton's media environment, which is our theme for the night. As usual, we have 3 topics, but they're all related to the situation in Newton in which we no longer have a local newspaper. And there are some efforts underway to have new sources of news in the city. And we're talking with some of the leaders of those efforts to find out what kind of news sources they're bringing to the city and how that will or will not make us a perfect place to live forever and ever. So without further ado, let me introduce tonight's fabulous panel. To my left is Amy Sangiolo. Welcome back, Amy.
Thank you so much, Ken. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. So, Amy, you were the vice president of the then Board of Aldermen, now City Council, of course. You were also a candidate for mayor at one point, or did you run once or twice?
I ran twice.
Twice. So 2 points then. And you were also the chair of the Programs and Services Committee. Little known fact, the most important committee of the City Council, dealing with schools and people think finance is big. No, all the actions of programs and services, right? You're a lawyer, and you've worn so many hats in the committee. What am I missing here?
Well, I'm currently working at the Attorney General's office as a consumer advocate.
Oh, that's fabulous!
Yep.
Great stuff. And of course, the thing that brings you here tonight in particular is that you're involved in Fig City News. Mm-hmm. Did I get that? Okay, yeah. Great. And we'll talk about that. What is your role with Fig City News then?
Founder and president and, what else am I? President
Publisher.
And treasurer.
Founder, president, and treasurer. That's probably enough, but if you want more titles.
And writer.
Okay, there you go.
Publisher.
Publisher, founder, president. Chief cook and bottle washer, it sounds
sure.
like.
Why not? Throw it all in.
Anyway, I remember your cooking's quite good, so that probably wouldn't be a bad thing, right? Anyway, Bruce Henderson, great to have you on the show,
Thanks,
Bruce.
Ken.
I was about to say back, but have you been?
I've been on once.
One time
maybe
before.
15 years ago.
Okay, we've been doing this show a long time.
Yes.
It's been 18 years, I think we've been doing something like that. Bruce is may I call you a community activist? You've been active in so many things in the community over the years. Way back when you ran for the school committee, right?
Yes, I did.
That was in the before times, right?
Yes. I learned a lot.
I'm sure. And but since then, and even before, you've been involved in a lot of campaigns and ballot initiative questions, and just in general community service. And you're on the board of a nonprofit now, I think. Am I right about that?
Commonwealth Land Trust. We do supportive housing, affordable housing.
Commonwealth Land Trust.
Yes.
Yeah, you've told me about it before, and you can tell
That's
our
right.
audience a little bit what that does.
We take buildings in Boston and in Lawrence. We develop them, and we manage them for formerly chronically homeless people, and we provide services that they need on site. So we're one of the very few organizations that integrates all of that together into one thing, Commonwealth Land Trust.
That is fabulous. And
so it's great. They do a terrific job. We do a terrific job, but they do the work. I'm on the board. Yes.
Well, thank you for volunteering and working on that really important cause. It's obviously homelessness is a chronic problem in every city in the country, and that you're tackling it in that way is just really inspiring. Thanks, Bruce. You're also tackling another problem, the lack of a local newspaper. And what is your role? You're also involved in Fig City News.
I'd say if you're a publisher, I'm the editor. She's Katie Graham, I'm Ben Bradley.
And what are the the what the Pentagon papers that you're investigating? Or
Yeah, we're still looking for those reporters to help us.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Good stuff. I leave anything important off, Bruce?
I write the Newton STEM blog. I've been doing that about 10 years.
And where can people find the Newton STEM blog?
Newton STEM, STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, .org. NewtonSTEM.org.
NewtonSTEM.org.
Yep. It's a website that generates a newsletter.
And the newsletter comes out on Sunday evenings, is that
Sunday
right?
evenings, yes.
And it's a must read. It really
That's
is
right,
interesting
yes.
stuff.
And from that, I learned how to do what we're doing now with Fig City News.
Well, I really, seriously, if you, particularly anyone who's got kids in the city, sign up for newtonstem.org because there's great resources for your kids there. Even if you don't want to go out and go to events, you can learn a lot from the links there. Just fabulous stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Aaron Goldman. Great to see you, Aaron.
Great to see you.
So Aaron was, I wouldn't say chief cook and bottle washer, but had many important roles in the City of Newton administration for an 8-year period. You were there for the entire Warren administration.
Correct.
And so you were at various points the citizen assistance officer.
Yes.
Or maybe would you do that for the whole 8 years?
I did that for his first term in office for 4 years. Yeah.
And you were the, in some way, spokesperson, is that right? Or media director, communications director?
Sure.
Stop me when I'm close.
Yeah, communications director, which encompassed a lot of different roles, including media relations and communications to residents through email platforms and various other sources. Yep.
And at some point you got, I don't know if it's promoted or demoted, to some kind of change management.
Hard to make a distinction in that office sometimes. But for his second term in office, I also served as director of performance management, which involved tracking the performance of all of our city departments and how well they were doing on a month-to-month basis across hundreds of different performance metrics, and working with departments to see where we could make improvements where it was needed.
And I'm sure that made you very popular with the department heads.
It's a little bit, but it all worked out in the end.
Okay, good. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show,
Great to be
Aaron.
here.
Now you have a role with another one of these new ventures called the Newton Beacon. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm volunteering my time to serve on the board of a new entity called the Newton Beacon, which will be a professionally staffed, nonpartisan news source covering a range of topics in Newton. And there's a group of residents that got together to work on this effort who really identified the lack of a news source, as you described, with the demise of the Tab and other news sources in the city, to work together to create a source that will be a place where people can go to find professional journalism, professional reporting about things that are going on in the city.
So, and I also left off, of course, what you're doing currently. You're a communications director for one of the little schools in the area.
For one of the small schools
tiny,
in Cambridge, yeah. So I have the privilege of working in communications and student engagement at Harvard University for the undergraduate school, which I've been doing for about 5 years now since I left the city of Newton, and that's been an incredible opportunity. But it's great that I'm able to give back a little bit of the limited free time I have to help the Beacon out and get them off the ground and running. And I'm also currently serving as the chair of the board of directors for the West Suburban YMCA. And it's an exciting time for the Y, where we're about to open a second location in Newton just down the road from here on Wells Avenue.
That's fabulous. Well, thank you for your volunteering your time for the Y. That's I know that parking lot there, the vacant spot on Wells
won't be
Avenue.
vacant for long.
That's great. And so I guess I'll start with you and go backwards here. How did you get involved in this Beacon effort?
So I was contacted by a group of residents who had started this, and they knew me from my work with the city, and knew that I had worked closely with media and entities here in Newton. As you said, when I was there for working for Mayor Warren, I worked closely with the reporters. You know, we had at least for the first few years that he was in office, the Tab was still a pretty robust entity, and it was still being delivered.
Was the graphic still exist?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think it did.
It was already gone by then.
It was already gone by then, but the Tab still had a pretty robust presence for at least the 3 or 4 years.
At that point?
3 reporters, editor, publisher, full-time photographer. I mean, really, you know, any major event or something that was happening in the city.
Still with the paper then?
For photography, yeah, he was. Yep. And you know,
he did that for a long time.
Long time. Yep, he did a great job. You know, any major event or announcement that was happening in the city, you could count on the Tab being there and covering it in a robust way, and it was going to land on people's doors once a week. And I think that really contributed to people having a sense of knowledge about what was going on in the city, feeling like they had a stake in their community, like they belonged, they knew what was happening. And we've seen that diminish over the years. So when I was contacted to try to help out and get this new effort off the ground, I was more than happy to participate. I think there's a real need. I think we all agree there's a real need for that. So I'm happy to be a part of, hopefully, the solution.
Terrific. Bruce, how did you get involved in this, in the Fig City News?
Well, this actually goes back maybe 15 years. I did a lot of work with PTO newsletters and websites. I started working where my daughter had been in Zervis, Oak Hill, and Newton South. And I ended up developing a platform that worked for about a third of the PTOs in the city.
Why didn't it work for the other ones?
They didn't take it up. Everybody likes
it
their
would
own.
have worked for anyone.
It would have worked fine. But one of the things we focused on was getting community announcements out and trying to find one place. You could send it to one place and it would go out to all the PTO communities. And I did that for several years. From that, I did the Newton STEM stuff. And then when Amy was doing a newsletter, I said, we can use the same platform for that. And how long have you been doing that?
I started in 2015.
Yeah.
So it wasn't called Fig City News in 2015. Amy, you started a newsletter while you were still an elected official, right? Or
I did in part because a constituent was so upset about the leaf blower ordinance that we were doing. And I think you were still on the council then, were you?
I left the council at the end of 2009 because that's when I had my last run for City Hall office.
Okay, well, in 2015 there was so much concern about what the city council was doing, and so I wanted to explain, one, what the leaf blower ordinance was all about, and what other things the city council was doing. And people started catching on. Wow, we didn't realize how hard the city council was working. And then it expanded to the school committee, and then it expanded to boards and commissions throughout the city. And then over the years, even before we started Fig City, I started putting up community announcements and little snippets, little like, pay attention to this, look at this, this is what's happening. You need to know, this kind of thing. And then when we talked, so there was a group.
That was while the tab still existed, though, right?
No, yes, definitely while the tab is still in existence. But the tab, as well established as they were, they didn't cover like everything. They couldn't, right? There's no way that you could actually have an investigative reporter at every single meeting. And I think the fact that I highlight all the different things that are happening in the city, people can pick and choose. And I think, at least in Fig City News, what we've made sure that we do is that we cover particular hot button issues that are being discussed.
So what's the difference between what you were doing before, when the tab still existed, and the new Fig City News? Since I've been getting your newsletter for years, it's fabulous, and now I'm getting Fig City News newsletter. I might have an idea what the answer is, but why don't you explain what's new?
Sure. So we have
what's new in news.
Well, we have two newsletters. Mine was just a Monday report showing all the different meetings and community announcements that were happening. But now we've decided, because we're doing news stories about highlighting, people, individuals in the community, different events that are happening in the community, specific topics, like Bruce Apotheker retiring, things of that nature.
We should mention to our audience, he worked in the police department. He
worked in the police department, right. So we have that coming out on Wednesday mornings. So we've broken out from one long newsletter to two newsletters.
So there's a Monday newsletter and a Wednesday newsletter, and you can sign up for both by going to figcitynews.com.
Yep.
Okay, and maybe we can put that up on the screen. We'll try. We have, the pandemic. We're easing back from the pandemic, and we don't have the full cadre of technical folks working on putting the show together tonight, so hopefully everything goes smoothly.
There
But
we go.
yes,
That's how
we
it
have
took.
something behind me on the screen. Maybe we could even do it full screen. We'll see what happens.
Oh, looks good.
Anyway, yeah, it's all kinds of interesting stuff, which is totally illegible to the folks at home, which is why they need to sit down at their computers or iPads or iPhones or whatever other devices they have and go to figcitynews.com. The Beacon, So Fig City News has already got stuff up online now. When I looked at the Beacon, correct me if I'm wrong, it's still sort of in the pre-development phase? Or?
Yeah, the Beacon is looking at launching in the first quarter of next year. And so there's an effort right now underway to raise capital to identify staff who would be full-time journalists reporting on issues throughout the city. The Beacon was just recently awarded 501c3 status. It will be a nonprofit newspaper. It will be professionally staffed. It will be nonpartisan. And my vision for the Beacon is really to have it covering a range of topics across the city and to not assume any pre-existing knowledge of information. I want somebody who just moved to Newton from California a week ago to know as much about what's going on here in this community as somebody who's lived here for 4 generations, which my family has now with my kids who are 4th generation to live in the city. But I don't think that their being here for that long gives them some special advantage over somebody who just moved here.
You didn't get your secret key cards to the Crystal Lake
I'm
Bathhouse?
I'm still waiting. So
you don't want to go in the Crystal Lake Bathhouse.
I used to a lot when I was a kid.
When they redo it, you will.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Whenever that happens. I was on that task force.
I know.
We came up with the plan, what is it, like 15 years ago now? I don't know.
But that's important to me, and it's important to the mission of the Beacon to make sure that people
So
have a chance
the one
to
you're
know what's
working
going
on would be paid staff. How many paid staff are you guys thinking about?
There's different models that we're looking at. I think we want to make sure that we have capacity to cover a wide range of topics in the city, to be at meetings that are happening at City Hall, to be at school committee meetings, but also just to feature people that are doing interesting things in Newton, to do interviews, to highlight our business community, which I think has really suffered from the lack of news coverage over the last several years, particularly during the pandemic. They've missed out on a lot of opportunities for both advertising and just opportunities for storytelling and highlighting new businesses that have been opening. So all of that is important.
So what about revenue? Will you be selling advertising in this to pay for the staff?
It's possible. We look at different opportunities. There's a huge fundraising component to this. And it will be primarily donor funded. Mm-hmm. Advertising is a possibility. I don't anticipate a scenario where things are behind a paywall. As I said,
Would it be
I
like
really
kind of
want
like
things to be
public
accessible.
radio, though, where public radio they have like a fundraising drive and they have underwritten by where someone gets.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if there would be naming opportunities or things like that, but certainly primarily funded by donors with the possibility for advertising revenue. Yep.
This is all so fascinating. I'm just delighted to learn from you what's going on with these efforts, but I don't want to stop us. Okay.
No, I was just going to add that there was an effort right when the tab closed, and I was part of that group with Greg Reedman and Gail Spector and Chuck Tanowitz and Jerry Riley and Matt Hills. We would all meet weekly to try to figure out like what's the best way to get a local paper going. And one of the ideas that came out was what we see now, which is what the Boston Globe puts out, which is that Newton report, where they have students, I think 5 to 10 students, who help report on
college
different
journalism students.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Gail Spector was running the program at BU, but Gail has left now. I'm grateful that it still continues. I think it gives the kids a
So
great
we should
opportunity.
have put up a link to that too. You
should have told me.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I did not even. I'd heard of that, and I remember it vaguely. I didn't know that was still happening though. So
Yes,
that's
Very
on
much so.
Thursdays,
okay.
yes.
That is terrific to know. So we should probably put together on the commongroundtv.com website, if I could remember how to upload anything to it, a list of all these resources. Or I'm sure there's one somewhere. But anyway, let's get to our first topic though, because we have 3 topics and we have 3 panelists, and we should talk about our topics. So the first topic I'd like to talk about tonight, put it up on the screen maybe, no? Okay, oh there it is, topic number 1, no news is good news? The question, the thing that people said a lot and may or may not have meant was, over the course of the years of the tab existing, it's a rag, it's a lousy, it sits on people's lawns. And so my question, and of course a lot of us did read it, not only for the local government stuff, but for the high school sports scores, for the letters to the editor. We wanted, there were a lot of things that were of interest. But I mean, of course, the people around this table were much more involved in local government and involved in some of the, I guess, without using a pejorative for it, I would say that I probably geeked out on local news and local activities more than the average Newton citizen, having served, on the Board of Aldermen for 18 years and been involved in local politics and whatnot. And a lot of people didn't seem to read the local paper that much. I was always, the line I would always say is that people in Newton are much more concerned with national and international news. They don't know who their aldermen are and their school committee members are. So I would tell you that they're more likely to read the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal than the Newton Tab and the Newton Graphic. I used to say that when there was a Newton Tab and Newton Graphic. Now it's definitely true. I think it was true then as well. So my question is, has our quality of life in Newton suffered in any way as a result of the lack of the Newton Tab? I'll go around the table and see what people think. Amy, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think it has. I think the more people know what's happening, they can become more civically engaged and more civically involved, participate more in what either local government or the community or their schools are doing. And I think they want to know ways of getting involved. And I think that's where that void that either the Beacon or Fig City News can help fill. I mean, we do have other existing sources of news that is out there, but how much and what is being covered, which is really important.
Okay, all right. I won't ask a follow-up because I want to get to everyone. Then I've got a follow-up for you after that.
I think we're going to reach common ground very early on this. But I see two things that go missing when the tab goes away. One is a sense of belonging, where if you know what's going on, you feel connected to it, and so you feel like you belong to that story, that part of. And we're trying with Fig City News to throw in stories like that will catch people saying, oh yeah, I saw that sign in Newton Center. I was wondering what that was all about, and we can tell them about that.
What was that all about, Bruce? I was wondering.
Well, we can talk about that as topic number 4. But the other thing is a set of community announcements. As I mentioned earlier, I tried very hard to get the word out about, here are events, here's a calendar, and it's hard to find a place. Without Fig City News, it's hard to find a place now to say, where are all of these events coming up? Where can I look at one place and say, okay, November 12th, where are the craft fairs, whatever.
So if you were looking for a Halloween haunted house, would you have found that on Fig City News?
If there is one.
Well, there were. I mean,
Yeah.
a bunch of the elementary schools.
Right.
I don't know if the High Community Center had one this year, and I don't think New TV did.
We are
But there were-
imperfect.
there
We
are a
did not
bunch.
have any Halloween. We had the painting contests across the city beforehand and afterwards, and we had some other things Halloween related in Nonantum, the parade, stuff like that. But we did not have any haunted houses.
No haunted houses. Well, I'm not saying that you needed haunted houses. I'm just,
Yeah.
but there's a community calendar. That's something that presumably a lot of people would be interested to know is there.
And the nice thing is, it's a Google Calendar that people can easily bring into their own calendar. If they see an event online on our calendar, they can click on it and it goes into their own calendar.
So, do you have any idea of what the traffic is? How many people are looking at this calendar?
People
or-
ask us all the time, and we say yes.
And the tab used to publish its circulation.
Yeah, we do not.
Okay.
Yeah, the tab was selling advertising, and we're not focused on advertising.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. Without saying what your goal is or what your current numbers are you close to your goal? Do you have a goal?
We don't have a specific goal. We're very happy with where it is now because the people we've got have all opted in. And the readership, the percent readership is way up there because they're all people who've asked to be in this. And so
But
it's-
you don't have to be signed up to go to the website and read the news.
no, anyone.
So I guess what you're saying everyone's opted in, but do you know what
I'm
the traffic?
I'm speaking of the emails. And
Okay.
we have not been focused on the web traffic, and the simple reason is we are heads down trying to develop a product that really meets a need. So we're trying to learn about that need. I think we developed a prototype, we adjusted it. Basically, in April, May, and June, we developed. We launched in July. So July, August, and September was kind of like a beta test. We put it out there, and then we put a survey out. We got
So that recently, September of this year, so that's just a couple of months ago.
yeah, we got really good response from that, and we got some really good ideas as well. So we've been adjusting. So I see us as like an agile development team. taking a prototype and continuous improvement.
So I've already failed to keep to our format here. Of course, my apologies, Aaron. It's your turn to answer the question. Is Newton worse off? Are we suffering quality of life wise? Not that public policy is the next topic. Quality of life, is our quality of life worse in Newton as a result of there not being a Newton tab?
I think it certainly suffers when you have a lack of a proper news source for people to find out what's going on in the community. I mentioned our business community earlier. You know, when the tab was in its heyday, they did a great job of highlighting our business community and highlighting a new restaurant that opened or a new shop in one of our village centers. I think a cornerstone of a high quality of life is having a robust business community and vibrant village centers, and it's harder to do that when those businesses don't have as much of a vehicle to get the word out about what they're doing, to do advertising, to talk about storytelling. We used to see in the tab great storytelling about longtime business owners, people who had worked in a certain shop in a village center for many years. And so that's a huge missed opportunity right now that I think we are suffering from, and that could have an adverse effect on our business community. So that's one area. And I would certainly echo what Bruce said about the calendar of events and just knowing what's going on. So I have a third grader and a 3.5-year-old who will be starting elementary school at Newton Public Schools in a couple of years. And so I'm talking to young parents with families all the time, and people are always trying to figure out, what can I do with the kids this weekend? Where can I take them? What can I do? And it's word of mouth right now. And people are texting each other, oh, I heard about this event that's happening. I heard about this fair that's going on. But with the lack of a kind of a one-stop place to go and find this information, it's harder to find out about the information. And if you're a new resident, it's especially hard if you don't know where to go, where to look for those things. So I think it's the quality of life is definitely suffering as a result of the lack of a solid news source.
Aaron, you mentioned a couple of times that the business community lacks a place to advertise their services. Do you see the Beacon as filling that need?
Well, we'll see if they're actually posting, paid advertisements on the site. But I think either way, what we will see is an opportunity to spotlight businesses throughout the city and to do features on a new business that opened or a longtime business that people might not know about that they might want to go to, and storytelling about family businesses and small businesses that are across a range of sectors in the city. So I think there's a couple of different ways that it can be done, but either way, I would expect that the Beacon would certainly be a place that can highlight our business community.
So when we just ask this, does anybody hear anything from anyone else they disagreed with on their answers here?
I'd just say that we do have a one-stop shop right now, and that's at figcitynews.com, because we are providing that community calendar for folks. And in terms of highlighting businesses, we are doing that. I think Lauren Berman from All Over Newton certainly has a wonderful...
From what? From All Over?
All Over Newton. She has a wonderful newsletter that goes out to let people know about different business events. In fact, she even coordinates some small business
I'm sorry,
events.
what is the name of the person who does this?
Lauren Berman.
Lauren Berman.
Yeah, so and the Chamber has a great newsletter as well, trying to highlight, the different things that are happening for the business community. So I think all of us will play a very good role in making sure that everyone in the city of Newton, whether they're longtime residents, as you mentioned, or if they're newcomers to Newton, will have a bunch of resources to go to that will hopefully fill whatever void that they're...
Well, let me push back just a little bit and just ask, as a Newton resident, family with kids, whatever, so we need a community calendar. Is there anything else that a local paper, that having the tab or the graphic provided to the community that has yet to be remedied by Fig City News or anything else? In other words, is there any... Are we all set now that we've got Fig City News? Is there anything else?
No, we're still evolving. We've made one step towards, one of the things that is important is letters to the editor, to give people a platform to have a reasoned statement of what they care about without a lot of social media back talk to them. And letters to the editor do that. But I think what's missing now is, how do you turn that into a discussion? It's really hard within social media to keep that moderated.
Right, and I would just add, with the demise of the tab in local papers, you're right, without having that letters to the editor, people are going to Facebook groups, people are going to, I think you had highlighted Nextdoor
Next door Newton. I mean, there's neighborhood ones. So I'm in next door Newton Highlands, and but I think their algorithm works. They'll give you things from other neighborhoods that they think are popular or you might be interested in. So I'll see something going on in West Newton, like coyote sighting. A lot of coyote sightings. Apparently, people put that on, or free stuff they want to give away, and there's all kinds of interest. Someone was just giving away a 38-inch color TV, flat screen TV, and that way put that on, like don't want it. I guess they got a bigger one. I don't know. And it's like, anybody want this?
Right, but my point is that there have been blogs like Village 14, right, for instance, that was trying to fill that void of not having that.
Was that more of the opinion page, or was that the newspaper?
I would say that's more of the opinion page, but if you read through the comments, if you can go and read through the comments, I think people were saying, hey, this is where I'm actually the only place I can get news, but it wasn't a news source, right? So I mean, that's why it's important to have different news outlets, so that the community can go and get different points of view. Like you mentioned, some people look at the New York Times, subscribe to the New York Times and the Washington Post, and maybe the what's the one in Seattle Times, right? So people are looking at all different resources to get their news, to figure out what's important, because not one particular entity can cover everything.
I just want to add one thing to that. I think having a website or having a source that brings all this information together, that brings the calendar together, that brings information about businesses, about the schools, all that, that's only one part of this. People have to know about it. People have to know it exists and be able to find it. And so if the website is there, but only 1 out of 100 people in the city are aware of its existence, then we haven't done our job.
Well, after tonight, since everyone in Newton Watch is coming
I
back,
assume they
everyone's
do.
going to know about it. Because I'm like at Big City News, we do reveal our viewership, and it's actually required to watch the show to live in Newton. You know that, right?
Well, I've been
have you been
broken the
slacking
rules a few
off?
times when I watched it.
I catch up with reruns.
Yeah.
Those are online. That's fine too. You don't have to watch it live, but you do have to watch it. It'll be on your tax bill otherwise, as unwatched episode.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
But the one thing that I think the tab did really well, and it may be a function of just that they existed for such a long time, and it was a print edition that landed on your porch. Most people, if you mentioned, such and such was in the tab, they at least knew what you were talking about. Maybe it was still sitting on the kitchen table. They'd go back and look at it. And it's harder now. It's a different world. People aren't getting their information from print sources as much. People are more accustomed to getting information in short tidbits through social media and sites like Nextdoor Newton. So it's harder to reach people. It's harder to get the word out. But we can have the best news source, the best news site in the world. If people don't know about it and they're not going to it, it doesn't do us any good.
All right, I'm going to wrap up this topic because we got 2 more to get to, and we're about halfway through the show. Time flies when you're having fun, right? So I'm just going to put in my 2 cents on this. I agree with everything everyone said, but I think that there's another element potentially to the problem, and maybe people said this, but I would put it slightly differently, which is I think that having a newspaper of record in a community, having that, it's something that, in fact, that was a print edition, meaning that people, whether they were internet savvy or not, and it was the one source that, and I think, Aaron, maybe you alluded to this, that you could talk to people about, that you could refer to, and that it would give everyone a common knowledge. Not necessarily everyone would read it, but people had heard of the tab or heard of the graphic. But it would give you an ability to reach a very broad segment of the population. If you wrote an op-ed in the tab, because a critical mass of people would read that op-ed, and then it would be discussed places, like on this show, in fact, many times we invited someone on to talk about their op-ed. In other cases, I'm not saying we're the only ones who did that. And maybe there would be like a community forum on a topic, and the community forum would be covered, and it was sort of a cycle of conversation, I would say, over time that you could have. And now, of course, what I'm really talking about is really a segue into our next topic, which is public policy and the role of the newspaper in public policy. But I'll even say, in terms of just having a reporter covering youth sports, having a local paper. There's something about it's not. I think I forget who said it. It's you don't have a town unless you got a town newspaper, and I'm probably misquoting, but it's there is something about having that bulletin board. Like you used to have to. I mean, it's the law still. I think that the city, when it has an announcement about a development, they have to advertise it in the local newspaper. I don't even know how they comply with that law now, because there is no local newspaper to buy an ad in.
They have to pay a lot of money to post in the Globe.
Yeah, is that what they do?
Yeah.
They post it. That's our local newspaper now.
Yep.
Yes. But
Okay.
there's legislation at the State House to try to allow online publication of these legal notices.
I'm glad there's an answer to that question. Such a smart group of people here, very knowledgeable. That's terrific. Anyway, let's go to our second topic. Topic number 2, post-publication policy problems, perhaps? So my question here is quite simply, would anything be different policy-wise? There have been ballot initiatives since the demise of the tab. There was the one where some citizens groups, I think, collected signatures, Right Size Newton collected signatures to put the Needham Street development on the ballot. You all remember this?
Northland?
Northland Development on Needham Street, yes, I could Needham Street. The big one, the former Marshall's Plaza, is what most people know it as, right? Across from the TJ Maxx, or maybe it's across from the Marshall. I think it's now a Marshall's. Marshall's moved across the street. Anyway, the thing on Needham Street, the
By
old
Oak
piano
Street.
mill, people know the area. The Taekwondo place was there. A lot of stuff was there.
The chamber was there.
The Chamber of Commerce was there. There was a Radio Shack there. There were a lot of stores there over the years. Anyway, point being, that plaza is now a construction site because the voters in Newton voted to go ahead with that project once that zoning change was put on the ballot. And my question is, would that discussion, let alone the outcome, have been any different with a local newspaper, or would any other policy be different? Outcome have been different with a local paper in the last few years, zoning reform, any of these things that's going on in City Hall, than it is without a local paper. Aaron, you worked at City Hall in communicating what the government was doing. Tell us, does that matter?
I think it absolutely matters. I think a paper of record plays a huge role in holding people accountable who are in positions of influence at City Hall. I think when I was there and the tab was still in its heyday, I think they made us do our job better, and they served a really important role in the community. So I think the potential for shifting the outcomes of public policy because of a lack of a trusted news source is enormous. So I'll give an example. The mayor proposed an override that's expected to be on the ballot this coming March. And it's not that hard to see a scenario where it's a close vote and it might go one way or another because not as many people are informed about it as they might otherwise be. So I had the opportunity to attend Mayor Fuller's first town hall meeting on the override last week. It was held at my elementary school at Franklin, and we had a pretty good turnout, but it wasn't as high as it
You're a
as it might have been.
multi-generational Newton resident. Is that the elementary school you attended?
It's
as a
not the
child?
elementary school I attended, but my son is there now, and a couple of years my daughter will be there, so I call it my elementary
Where'd you go?
school
Which
at
one
the
did you
moment.
go to?
I went to private school for the first elementary school and middle school, and then I went to Newton North High School. Yep. And but I'm adopting Franklin as my elementary school
it's
now
now
as
your
a
Newton
parent.
Elementary.
That's
Got
right. And it's early. The turnout at these things will grow. Interest will grow. Awareness of the override will grow. But you can see a scenario where with a Newton tab or with an entity that was really reaching a wide range of people, that there'd be a larger crowd, there'd be more people talking about the override, and so it's an enormous influence that it could have and a huge impact if you. As I said, it's not hard to envision a scenario where it's close one way or the other, and it might have tipped in one direction or the other based on more people being aware
So
and more
you think
people
that
coming out and voting.
Northland thing could have come out differently if there was a local
Well,
paper?
I think it'd be speculative to say that if we had this, it would have done that or the other thing.
No,
I
I mean,
think
it could have
would've-
played a role. It could have
it's
weighed
possible.
one way or the other.
It's possible.
Maybe
I
it would have
don't-
passed by more. Who knows?
It's possible, but I think if nothing else, it probably would have led more people to be knowledgeable about the project, to be aware of it, and I think that's always a good thing. More information, especially from nonpartisan sources about things that are going on in the city, are always a good thing.
Well, let me just ask you a question about the nonpartisan. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to the rest of the panel. Then I want to, because I think Amy mentioned, and I think maybe Bruce, but everyone's talking about nonpartisan neutrality, 501c3. I want to ask about that. Don't let me forget to ask about that. But in the meantime, Bruce, let's go to the question on the floor. Yes or no? Would policy be any different in Newton if we still had a Newton tab?
I think just because of the tab's broad circulation, because everybody read it, at least people would see, I see what people are saying about this issue. But without that, people are going, I wonder what people are saying about that issue, or they don't even know about the issue at all. So we'll get there. We need to get broad audience. I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, we've got more common ground. This is like,
yes.
We're on a roll here, Amy.
I definitely think that there has been lack of accountability with decision makers here in the city. And I do agree that it particularly with the mayor proposing an override, it is very important that people know about what's being proposed, but also understand, the city's finances and understand the reasons behind the override. I think those are very important, and we've done our part to get that out. Jen Adams certainly shared her video with us, so we posted that.
So again, whenever we drop names on the show, I like to tell the audience who these people are. So Jen Adams is the news director, the longtime news director at New TV, does a fabulous news show on called Newton News, on public access cable here in Newton.
Yep.
I believe also watchable online through the newtv.org website. Go on, Amy. Sorry.
Yeah, and the mayor has a very robust override page on her website. But getting people to that website, getting the information in front of people so they know, oh, there's a community meeting at Franklin tonight. Oh, and Jane Colino is going to be speaking about senior services. And Mark Welch is going to be talking about trees and why they're important. And this is all, like, people don't know about it, and that's what we're trying to cover.
And people have no idea who Jane Colino or
Mark
Welch
Jane
is. But
Colino, head of senior services, who is retiring, and Mark
Director
Welch,
of Urban Forestry in Newton.
Director of Urban Forestry.
No, I mean, it's just, our audience is pretty sophisticated, but even so, I think a lot of people flipping stations are not necessarily going to know.
But I'm not so sure that with the Northland site that you were discussing, I'm not sure that may have made a difference, whether there was newspaper coverage or not. I think maybe it would have influenced voters to see the different points of view highlighted more, but there was so much money that was invested in that campaign that I think people pretty much knew what the proposal was and was able to vote accordingly.
Okay, interesting. So maybe not 100% common ground. Amy, I am 98%, but we're a little off from that. So now I'm going to go back to my question before, this idea of neutrality. The idea that, some have said there is no neutral news source. Everyone comes to the table with their own biases. But certainly you can have a nonpartisan local paper. On the other hand, in Newton, what does nonpartisan even mean? All our local officials are Democrats, right? Do we have a single Republican in our city council or in our school committee or in the mayor's office? Well, former Republicans, some of them, I guess. Or in our congressional. We're so it's not really partisanship so much. Is it partisanship? Let me ask.
I don't think partisanship only means if you're registered as a Democrat or Republican. I think we're fortunate that we have a lot of elected officials who do a really good job of keeping their constituencies informed through email newsletters and things like that. But whether they're all registered as Democrats or whatever they're registered for, there's still disagreements on lots of issues locally, and it's when an elected official sends out a newsletter.
Let me rephrase my question. So there's different political viewpoints on development issues. We know there's a big divide in that in Newton. Some people are very, very excited about lots of development. Other people take a much more cautious approach to it. Lots of differences of opinion, right? So is it the job of the Beacon or the Fig City News to try to be in the middle of that and be neutral on that? Is that what we need? Is someone to say, okay, there's different views on this issue, and we need to be the umpire, the call, or what is the role of a media?
I think it's incredibly useful to have a source that doesn't have a stake in the outcome of a particular issue that's before the city. So I don't know that means they're in the middle of it or whatever, but I think there's absolutely a role to play for an entity that doesn't stand to gain anything if an issue goes this way or that way, and is informing people from a place of just getting to the truth, not getting necessarily to this is what I want, this is what I'm advocating for, advocating against, but of telling people these are the facts, this is what the situation is, and then people can make up their minds from there.
Just to follow up on that, what about when a newspaper like the Tab has an editorial? Vote yes on this question, vote no on that. They put the Tab would always have their list of endorsed candidates. Does that in any way destroy that neutrality that you say they should aspire to?
I think newspapers can be successful running a model like that, where there are reporters and there's an editorial board and then a robust section for opinion pieces and letters to the editor. I don't think that having editorials or endorsed candidates prevents them from being able to do nonpartisan investigative journalism, but there are different models out there that work.
So do you see the Beacon having an editorial page and making endorsements in that kind of way, so you could endorse candidates and yet also have reporters? Is that?
I would see the primary function as having reporters and reporting in a neutral way what's happening in the city, and we look at different models and see if there might be a space for editorials and endorsements at some point. But I would view as the primary model, the primary function rather, as reporting on things that are happening in the city.
On this issue of nonpartisanship and neutrality?
We're working really hard to be in the middle, fair. People early on thought, oh, gee, Fig City News, they're going to be coming at this angle or that angle or whatever. We've got 188 news articles published now in the last so many months. Not one question about any complaint about bias in any of them. And I feel really good about that. We think that it's important to offer a platform for people to have their opinions, but we are not offering an editorial page. You are 501c3, congratulations on that. We have applied for that, and if we get it, we will be in the same position where we can't be advocating for a particular ballot issue or candidate. If it's up for a vote, that's off limits, so we'll stay away from that. It's fine to have other people we can publish opinion pieces, but not our own opinion on that.
Amy?
I forgot the question.
Neutrality. I mean, the idea that the source of news. I mean, let me just push back on Bruce for one second here. So you say no, you haven't had any complaints. How do we know that the people receiving the Fig City News aren't people who are getting Amy's newsletter, love Amy, and are going to agree with it? So how do we know that you're being neutral or not just appealing to a small segment of the population who shares those views?
We know who's in our subscriber base, and we can see who they are. And there are a lot of movers and shakers within the city from all different parts of the city politically.
So it's not just a small.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You bet.
They don't all love Amy because everyone should,
No,
right?
I have been saying that for so many years. Why don't you love me? But you're right. No, I mean, going out, we've gone to the Harvest Fair and other villages, letting people know about Fig City. And, that's always been a question. And so we've always said, go to Fig City, go look at the site and take a look at the articles. And if you see anything that's biased, walk away. We get that. Or let us know. And no one.
That's a very high bar to set anything that's biased.
No one has come back to
Seriously,
us to
no
say, to say that. And we would disclose that as part of our editorial notes that we also publish. And I just want to say, look, one of the articles that I wrote that I'm very proud of, to my own horn, was the article on NewCal. I interviewed, thanks to Jane Colino, I found.
So NewCal, I think people may not know, that's the new senior center being built on Walnut Street in Newtonville. It was very controversial. They're building it in the same site as the existing senior center, and for a long time they were talking about putting it in a park, and that was very controversial, and then finally they went back to just building on it. Anyway, just context, because the terminology sometimes.
No,
Yep.
that was very good context, and that's what I wanted to highlight, that there was controversy, that there were people who just really wanted to have a senior center, who worked so hard, dedicated hundreds and hundreds of hours going to meetings and trying to get community consensus. But I also wanted to show the folks who were concerned about the demolition of the existing historic building. I wanted to show their side and show that not everything is a cut and dry, easy answer, that people on both sides have their reasons for whatever they believe, but that NewCal is, still going forward. And I think I had a lot of very positive feedback on that, because they wanted to know what other residents were feeling.
So it occurs to me, and this is apropos of not this topic, but it just the subtopic, but that the Fig City News is requiring quite a bit of volunteer effort to make it work, and on the part of what I would call super volunteers like Bruce and Amy. Is that a sustainable model over time? I mean, is that something that can...
Amy's done her newsletter for 7 years.
She has, but I'm talking about when she's
Yes.
not doing this anymore, and when you're not doing it.
Okay.
50 years from now, I don't want to cut the timetable shorter than
How long
that.
did the tab stay around? I don't know.
Well, no, but what
It
I'm saying,
wasn't-
that had paid staff.
But was it
and had
50 years?
advertising.
No.
No, well, it was more than 50
I
years.
think it was more than 50.
Really?
It was way more
Wow.
than 50 years. But yeah, certainly more than 50 years, because I'm 52, and it certainly was around long before my time, I think. But again, why? I don't know. The guy who started
Around there.
actually, let's put it this way: there were print newspapers in Newton.
Yeah,
That I would
Yeah,
absolutely.
it
Yeah.
was-
Graphic of the Times.
Absolutely, yeah.
There was another one. Martina Jackson was
The
involved.
She was with the Times.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll take back that it was a Newton, but there have been print newspapers in Newton as long as there's been a Newton.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So my question is, isn't all volunteer, not advertising supported effort ultimately sustainable?
We don't know. We may evolve.
Is
We'll
there
see.
a model elsewhere that you're building it based on that has been sustainable over time?
Well, we're looking at different communities and the different types of papers that they have. I mean, Santa Cruz Local is a paper out in California. There's the Bedford Citizen that's more local here. Those are volunteers and evolving into more of a paid staff kind of thing. And that's something that we may, go for. I mean, we just, as Bruce mentioned, we just filed for 501c3 status, and we have a donate button up. So if we can raise some funds, we can hire some people.
Okay. And sorry to get off the topic. Anyway, let's wrap up that topic and go to our last topic in the last final few minutes. I think we've mostly covered it already, probably, but we'll focus in on it for a couple of minutes. So just on the second topic, I actually disagree with at least a couple people on the panel here. I do think that the lack of a local paper has had a radical effect on policy formation in the city. I mean, I had a front row seat to policy. Obviously, Amy, you have for many years too. But the effect of having a local paper and having that iterative process of people writing a letter, there's an article, there's an op-ed, there's a rally, there's something, the finance committee amends the item, sends it back to programs and services, and then there's another news story about that. Having that process going on, I think, has a really strong effect, to the point where some ideas just die, some proposals just die on the basis of that, and others are born. And so I do not know definitively whether Northland would have been approved, but I think Amy's point that there was a lot of money spent. We were only hearing from the advocates. There wasn't that neutral voice of journalism. I wouldn't call it nonpartisanship. I would call it meeting journalistic standards of reporting on what people are actually doing without, and that doesn't mean reporters don't have biases, but it means that they set those biases aside to report as fairly as they can on the story. And I think there's a pretty good chance it wouldn't have passed if there had been something other than the massively funded marketing campaign and what was perceived as the NIMBY side that was sort of pejoratively If they weren't NIMBYs at all, I think it was like a lot of really good information. But if that information had been published in a local newspaper, I think there's a high probability the thing would not have passed. That's just my opinion based on my 18 years as an elected official in the city. That having been said, we got one topic left, and so I'm just going to go around the table real quick on this. Can new media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all this stuff, websites, apps, can that fill the gap of not having a local paper? What we can subscribe to Pound, whatever it is, on Twitter, right? Elon Musk will give us all the news we need, won't he? What do you think, Bruce?
Well, I think all of those snippets are way too short, and they're not organized. One of the things we're trying to do is to have a website that you can click on any particular topic, any particular village, any particular responsible government agency, and find out what's the news or what are the upcoming events for that particular slice that you want to look for. It's very hard to do that. Yes, you can search Twitter, but it's very hard to have an organized discussion of a topic.
Aaron?
Well, I think the sources that you mentioned, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, are great for getting information out, and they certainly have a role. I can tell you, I don't ever want to be in a scenario where I'm relying on Twitter for my news and where I'm going to Twitter to find out what's going on in the world.
Or any new media. I'm giving examples.
I think they have a role. I think they have a place in society. I think they've been detrimental in a lot of ways. I think they've brought a lot of voices into the discussion that might not otherwise be there, and that can sometimes be a really good thing. It can sometimes be an absolutely terrible thing. But I don't think that those vehicles are filling the void of real journalism.
Amy?
I absolutely agree. They're certainly not filling any void in terms of journalism, other than to get the word out there, right? That something is happening.
I will say we obviously have common ground on this. I will put my 2 cents in simply to say that social media is the opposite of good journalism in one respect, which is that it tends to segment people and tear people apart by virtue of its vicious cycle of telling you exactly what you want to hear, Aaron, because it wants you to click on it, right, Bruce? Right, Amy? I feel this way. Like the Twitter will tell me, oh, these tweets may be of interest to you. Why? Because I agree with them already. It's self-reinforcing. So it divides us and does the opposite thing that a local paper can be, the glue that binds a community together. I think that's why you can't have a town without a town paper. And these new media, at least so far, it's not the technology that's the problem. It's the economic model that they want eyeballs and they want clicks. And they're driven, therefore, by a fuel that causes divisiveness. And that, to me, is hurting us not only locally in Newton, but I think is a driver of our national politics and January 6th insurrection and the attack on Speaker Pelosi's husband. All of that is driven by this divisiveness of our new media environment. And it's a problem that we can't address on this show tonight. But I think it certainly is not, as some people, I've heard people say, oh, we don't need a local paper. We do need a local paper because new media ain't going to cover it. Anyway, thank you so much. What a fabulous panel.
Thank you
Amy,
so much, Ken.
You're terrific.
Ken,
Bruce,
this is fun. Thank you so
best.
much.
Thank you, Ken.
Aaron,
Great to be here.
Great to have you.
Likewise.
Wonderful to have you on the show. And to our audience, thank you. Welcome back to our little studio here at New TV on Needham Street. And please join us again next time when we try to find just an eensy-weensy bit more common ground.